Wind clawed at the shutters, rattling them like loose bones. The cabin groaned under its own weight, every timber stiff against the mountain night. Jonah Harker set his hand against the doorframe, listening to the wood creak, to the coyotes howling down in the gulch. Their voices carried long and sharp, as if the canyon itself wanted him gone. Inside, the fire guttered low, its glow thin and restless. Smoke curled along the rafters, stinging his eyes. He dropped another log, sparks leaping, shadows jerking across the walls. The place felt half alive, half waiting, as though some breath other than his own hung in the room. Jonah's boots scraped the floorboards as he moved, heavy with the day's miles. Dust still clung to his coat, powdery gray from the trail. His hands, scarred, knotted from war and years, unbuckled the leather satchel he'd carried since Tennessee. He set it down, the thud echoing louder than it should have in the tight cabin air. A low moan of wind forced through the chimney, wailing like some lost thing. Jonah stiffened. For a moment he thought he heard footsteps outside, crunching against the frost-bitten ground. His breath slowed, ears straining. Nothing but the groan of the trees bending in the gust. Still, he reached for the Colt left on the table. His fingers hovered near the iron, not quite touching it, just remembering. The walls answered him with silence. He stepped outside. The night hit hard, cold, dry, sharp against his lungs. The canyon spread below, a great wound carved into the earth, shadows thick as tar in the gullies. The pines whispered above him, needled branches scratching against each other in the restless dark. Overhead, stars blazed, hard points of light, unmoved by man or mountain. Jonah's boots sank into the thin crust of snow. He scanned the ridge. No campfires, no riders. Only the outline of the peaks rising black against the sky, jagged like broken teeth. Yet something pressed in all the same, a weight in the stillness, a sense of eyes unseen. He lit his lantern, its glow casting a narrow ring across the porch. The light touched the edge of the rail, the split log posts, then fell uselessly into the dark beyond. He set the lantern down, its glass humming faintly with the flame's shiver. His heart slowed, though unease gnawed. He'd bought this cabin to escape, yet the land itself seemed to question him, to measure him. Coyotes cried again, closer this time, their yelps sharp, mocking. Jonah tightened his jaw. The wind shifted, carrying with it the faintest trace of sound. Not wild, not animal. A woman's hum, low, distant, curling through the canyon like smoke. Jonah froze, every muscle taut. He turned toward the sound, eyes cutting through the shadows. Nothing there, only the hush of trees and the moan of the wind. But the hum lingered, and the old storytellers would later say that was the first night the mountain's daughter began to watch him. The lantern's flame guttered. Jonah snapped awake, hand already on the Colt. The door stood open though he'd bolted it tight. Cold poured in, sweeping across the floor, licking at the fire's embers. A figure lingered in the threshold, motionless, pale dress stirring in the draft, hair dark as the pines outside. She did not step forward, nor turn away. Jonah rose slow, every joint stiff. "You lost." His voice came rough, scraped with sleep and years. The woman's eyes lifted to him, gray, sharp as steel struck on stone. "They're coming," she said. Her tone carried no tremor, no doubt, only warning. Jonah's grip tightened on the revolver, though he kept it low. "Who?" She turned her gaze past him, to the log walls that groaned with the wind. Men who burn what they cannot take. Men who follow the rails. Silence held. Jonah studied her, skin pale in the lantern light, face unreadable as mountain stone. She seemed younger than her voice, yet older than her years. Dust clung to the hem of her dress, as if she'd walked through the canyon itself. He reached for the door, meaning to shut it. She did not move. "This place is not empty," she said, quiet but firm. "It is waiting. So am I." The words pressed on him heavier than the wind outside. He felt the weight of his satchel on the table, of the rifle wrapped away inside, untouched for years. He had sworn off violence, yet her eyes held him, unblinking, as if she already knew the truth of him. Jonah cleared his throat. You best go back to your kin. These hills don't take kindly to wanderers. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. My kin are in the earth. This ridge is mine, and the men who come will find me here. Coyotes wailed again, closer, sharper. Jonah stepped onto the porch, lantern held high. The night stretched wide, dark as a closed fist. No movement on the ridge, yet the cry of horses carried faint on the wind, drifting up from the canyon floor. He froze, listening. Not imagination. Riders. He turned back. The woman stood at his hearth now, the pale of her dress catching the fire's glow. She laid her hand flat against the log wall, almost tender. This cabin was not meant for one man alone, she said. If you stay, I will stand with you. Her voice, steady, certain, filled the room more than the fire's light. Jonah felt the war stirring in his chest again. The memory of nights where every sound meant death, where every shadow held a rifle's barrel. He thought he'd left that behind. But here, the promise in her words bound itself to him like iron. The lantern hissed. Outside, the wind died. The canyon fell into a silence, so heavy it seemed to lean against the cabin walls. Jonah set the colt on the table, metal clinking against wood. His eyes never left hers. He did not speak, but the promise lingered, sharp as a drawn blade. The first shot cracked against the ridge, stones splintering above the porch. Jonah dropped flat, dragging the lantern down with him. Glass shattered, flames snuffed. Darkness swallowed the cabin whole. Hoofbeats pounded below, hard and certain. Men's voices rose, shouts, curses, the bark of orders carrying through the canyon. A second shot tore through the shutters, wood splintering into the room. Jonah crawled across the floor, chest pressed low against the boards. The mountain's daughter was already there, kneeling by the hearth, her hand on the stones as if listening through them. She did not flinch, not even when a bullet punched through the doorframe inches above her shoulder. They'll burn it, she whispered, like they burned the others. Jonah's jaw tightened. He felt the weight of old vows dragging heavy inside him. His hand shook as he reached for the satchel he'd kept sealed since Tennessee. The leather straps resisted, stiff with years of disuse. He pulled, breath shallow, until the flap fell open. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, lay the long rifle. Steel still dark, wood worn smooth by war. His throat closed at the sight. He had buried too many memories with that weapon. Too many names. The daughter's eyes fixed on him. It belongs here now. A roar of fire lit the windows, torches hurled against the walls. Smoke clawed inside, thick and bitter. Jonah's fingers clenched around the rifle. The fit of it against his palm was too natural, too certain. Outside, hooves scraped the porch. A man's shadow crossed the splintered doorway. Jonah lifted the rifle to his shoulder, breath steadying in the old rhythm. For the first time in years, his body remembered. He squeezed the trigger. The shot thundered through the cabin, rolling across the canyon like a drumbeat. A scream followed, sharp and cut short. The shadow crumpled. Horses reared. Men cursed. Gunfire erupted wild into the night. Jonah racked the bolt, the motion smooth, unbroken. His eyes stayed fixed on the doorway, on the next shadow that dared. Smoke thickened, curling low, stinging his eyes. The daughter stood tall now, face lit by the flames chewing along the outer wall. She did not shrink from the heat or the noise. They'll come in numbers, she said. Her voice cut through the chaos like steel. Jonah's grip tightened. Then we count them one by one. Another figure burst across the porch. Jonah fired again. Wood split, men shouted, horses bolted down the ridge. Yet still more voices rose, echoing up from the canyon. The fire climbed the logs, roaring louder. Heat pressed to Jonah's back. He braced himself against it, eyes locked forward. The rifle lay steady in his hands, a truth too long hidden. The mountain's daughter stepped beside him, her shadow cast against the flames. Her promise hung between them, unyielding, bound to blood and earth. Outside, the gang gathered again, their torches blazing brighter than the stars. The night was far from over. The porch shuddered under the weight of boots. Jonah's rifle barked, muzzle flash splitting the dark. A man dropped, torch tumbling, flames licking across the dirt. The gang scattered, gunfire bursting in return, bullets slamming into the cabin walls like hammers. Smoke clawed from the roof beams. Heat pressed close. Jonah knelt by the doorway, rifle steady, every breath measured. His eye found shapes in the dark, shadows darting between the torches, men circling like wolves. He picked one, squeezed. Another fell. The mountain's daughter stood beside him, her pale dress glowing in the firelight, hair whipping with each crack of the wind. She held an old pistol, her grip sure, her gaze sharper than any man's. A shot rang from her hand. A rider toppled backward, his horse screaming as it fled into the night. The gang's voices grew ragged, anger laced with fear. "It's him," one shouted. "The ghost. Shiloh's ghost." The name ripped through the canyon louder than the gunfire. Jonah felt it like a blade turned in his chest. He had buried that name years ago. Yet here, with fire rising and death closing in, it breathed again. He chambered another round, jaw locked, shoulders iron. His shots cracked true, one after the other. Each man who pushed forward cut down before he touched the porch. The legend of Shiloh's ghost lived in the rhythm of each pull, in the silence that followed each scream. Still the gang pressed, torches hurled, flames devouring the outer walls. The cabin roared with fire, smoke choking the air. Jonah's lungs burned, but his eyes never faltered. Through the haze, he saw the last of them gather. 3 men left, guns high, charging together. The daughter's voice cut sharp. "Now!" Jonah rose into the doorway, a dark figure against the inferno, rifle raised. His shot dropped the first before his boot hit the porch. The Colt leapt into his other hand, iron barking. The second staggered, fell. The third, wild-eyed, faltered, then turned, scrambling into the night, his torch cast down in panic. Silence slammed shut over the canyon. Only the crackle of fire, the groan of burning timbers. Horses bolted into the dark, their hooves fading, their riders gone. Jonah lowered the rifle, chest heaving. Smoke stung his eyes, sweat carved lines through the ash on his face. Beside him, the daughter stood still, pistol lowered, her expression unreadable. The flames lit her features like carved stone, eternal and unmoving. The cabin groaned, roof sagging. Jonah stepped into the yard, rifle still in hand. The night stretched wide and endless, stars hard above, the canyon echoing with what had been done. The daughter's voice, quiet now, steady as earth. "You kept the promise." Jonah turned his eyes to her, but no answer came. Only the hush of the wind, carrying the smoke upward into the stars. And so the tale was carried, that a man bought a lonely cabin, and on a night of fire and blood, stood with the mountain's daughter against the dark. Some say she still keeps watch. Others say it is his ghost that lingers, guarding the ridge forever.